Check out FlipsideGaming.com for all your gaming needs. Use the promo code HEROES to save 10% on all orders over $10 and support the channel at the same time. Hey there, this is John from Heroes and Legends, and welcome to the special edition of the Magic the Gathering Market Watch. Guilds of Ravnica launch weekend is finally here. At time of recording, the cards are going to come out tomorrow. So we're going to talk a little bit about what cards are hot right now, which ones are cold. And basically, cards are moving currently because of the forecast for what the new standard environment will look like. So a lot of the cards that are heating up are cards that people feel pretty confident are going to see standard play. The ones that are colder are going to be cards that typically maybe had a little bit too high of a price point during the pre-release time. Now, quickly before we dig into the information, just a fast reminder, if you check out the description below, you'll find a few ways to help support the channel. One of which is our Patreon page. You're also going to find links to Amazon products down below. If you make any purchases there, we'll get a small percentage. Finally, Flipside Gaming still offering a promo code for our viewers. They actually have the guild kits available now for pre-order, so if you were looking for a place to pick those up, you might want to check that out. But as always, thank you not only to the folks that look at those links, but to all the viewers. Y'all make the channel what it is. I appreciate y'all. Let's get into it, though. Beginning with the top 10 Guilds of Ravnica cards that have lost value this week. Number 10, Chromatic Lantern, down 44 cents to 436. Awesome Commander staple. Very happy that this got reprinted. And if you've been waiting to pull the trigger, wait a little bit longer. As people open packs, especially over the next few weeks, this is a rare. There's going to be a lot of copies of this out there. There's going to be demand. Commander players love this card, although it's been printed in the past, obviously, so many of them have their copies. So this will continue to go down a little more before it stabilizes. Number 9, Thousand Year Storm, down 61 cents to 258. I mentioned this before in other videos, but the reason I think this is going to have a real hard time in Standard is because it costs 6 and does nothing on its own. You're taking the turn off to play it, and you're hoping you have instants and sorceries that you can kind of go off on later. Might work well with Jumpstart, but I just don't think the consistency's there. Now, Saffron Olive did do an against the odds brew with this, and that was a very interesting, look like a fun deck. But again, I just don't feel like the consistency for Standard is going to be there with that strategy. With that being said, this could be a fun Commander card, and I do think it goes down more in the coming weeks. Number 8, Rahl, Is It Viceroy? Down 62 cents to $10. It's not unusual to see the Planeswalkers losing value going into the release week just because they usually have a pretty high pre-release price tag, and that's because a lot of casual players will want to pick them up. Now, this card in particular, I do think will see some standard play. It's already in some brews. Is It Control, for example, in the Dragons deck? I've seen people trying to revitalize Dragons with cards like this. We'll have to see how much play it actually sees week 1, week 2, but this one could stabilize quick. Number 7, Vraska Golgari Queen, down 65 cents to $12.99. So here's the other Planeswalker. And this one I do think is going to see a fair amount of standard play. First off, there's a lot of emphasis on Golgari thanks to Assassin's Trophy. And that card has just caught a lot of people's attention as well as it should. It's amazing removal. And you're seeing some Golgari mid-range builds, Abzan mid-range builds that are going to run that card and also run this card. Aside from that, I've even seen some Abzan Fall of the Thran decks running this. So this could be a decent price for the card, especially if some of those decks do well week 1 or week 2. This could quickly stabilize and start going up at least a little. Number 6, Lazav, the Multifarious, down 67 cents to $6.25. I haven't seen a lot of standard brews with this card yet, although down the road you might start to see some. There's a lot of raw power here, but I do think for Commander purposes, this could become a popular card over time. $6.25 does feel a tad expensive right now. Wait for packs to get cracked. This will come down a little more. Maybe around the $4 or $5 mark might be a good time to pull the trigger if you're a Commander player. Number 5, Chance for Glory, down 72 cents to $2. This is a very affordable mythic. I have seen some Boros brews trying to run this, but once we seriously get into Standard over the next week or so, I don't think you're going to see a lot of that. Those decks will still do well, I think, but I don't think they'll be running Chance for Glory. Number 4, Mausoleum Secrets, down 74 cents to $2.25. This had a nice price tag during the pre-release time because it is a tutor. I still think it can see some standard play. Maybe not right away, but eventually somebody will find a deck that wants this. $2.25 is pretty affordable, but I do think it goes down a little more over the next week or two. Number 3, Assassin's Trophy, down 97 cents to $24.13. Yep, that's right, the most sought-after card in the set, losing almost $1 of value going into release weekend. Why is this? Well, it had a kind of high price point during the pre-release time. As soon as this card was revealed, people were selling these for around $25. So you can imagine that since this is a rare, not a mythic, that you would see a little bit of price drop off at least for a while. And maybe that's true for another week or so as packs get cracked, but I don't think this is going to lose a lot more value, and here's why. Even though it is a rare and there's going to be plenty of copies, Many people are going to be cracking packs for some time to come. We don't get another standard set to January. But even considering that, the demand is so high on this card right now. Standard players want 4 of them out of the gate, right? Even if you're not going to be playing this right away, you know at some point during its lifetime in Standard, you're going to want copies. So they're going to try to get ahead of that. Also, there's other players that are interested. Modern players, legacy players, vintage players, and casual players. So between the crossover appeal and the mad scramble you're going to get, especially from the Standard players, this thing is not going to go down a whole lot. Compare this to Fatal Push. I think that's a pretty fair comparison. That one was uncommon. This one's rare. There are some other small differences, like Ether Revolt was a small set, but guilds will most likely be opened in higher quantities. Take out of the equation for a moment that some people thought that Fatal Push didn't show up in the same frequency as other uncommons, and you have a pretty similar situation here. Basically, Fatal Push was always an expensive uncommon, a very expensive uncommon. This is always going to be a very expensive rare. And you're going to notice that this card will probably sit around the $20, $23 mark for some time to come, even with all the copies out there. And because of that mad dash that's going to happen, combined with the amount of play that I believe this is going to see, I mean, look at the brews that are already coming out with this card. Golgari mid-range decks, Abzan mid-range decks, Abzan Knight decks, that Fall of the Thran deck I mentioned earlier. These are all just some examples of decks that are already using this in early brews. I have no doubt this is going to play a big role going forward in Standard, if not other places. Number 2, Demonic Betrayal, down $1.24 to $2.75. Okay, back down to some cheap mythics here. This one, I think, has an issue with Standard because of the startup cost of 3. It's not a ton of mana, but then you need mana to actually cast whatever you're going to cast, and you have to have good targets in an opponent's graveyard, so that leaves a level of inconsistency there. Put it all together, this is a great commander card. I'll say that about it. Because simply, you're going to have more mana, you're going to have more targets, and yeah, for $2 or so, because this will go down some more in the coming weeks, this will be a nice pickup if you're a commander player. Number 1, Divine Visitation, loses the most value this week, down $1.52 to $6.50. Again, this partially is because of a high price tag during the pre-release time, I think a unrealistically high price tag. There's a lot of interest in this card because it sounds so cool on paper. The problem is when you start to brew with it, you start to wrap your head around it, at least for Standard, it leaves a lot to be desired. 5 casting costs just to turn it on. Then you have to have ways to create tokens, and hopefully this doesn't get blown up in that process. Now, even though I don't feel it's the most efficient card, I think there is a brew out there that does want this, and it's Selesnya tokens. I have seen those decks running a couple out of the sideboard for matchups where it's more stable. Aside from that, Commander Selesnya tokens decks will want this as well, so there is some crossover appeal. I do think it goes down a little more, though, before it stabilizes. Alright, let's move on to the top 10 Guilds of Ravnica cards that have gained value this week. Number 10, Thief of Sanity, up 76 cents to $2.72. I've seen a few brews that are either Dimir or Esper Control running this. I don't know if it sees a ton of play, but I do think it will at least see a little Standard play going forward. Number 9, Ionize, up 88 cents to $3.50. Wizard decks are already interested in this, as well as Jeskai Control builds. And I do think both of those decks are decks we could see in week 1 of tournaments. This is one that could continue to stay hot for a bit. Number 8, Find and Finality, up $1.09 to $1.62. Recently, I've noticed in more and more of these Golgari mid-range decks, I'm seeing at least a copy of this showing up. Because of that, it has a nice percentage increase this week. We'll see how it pans out once people start playing for real. Number 7, Experimental Frenzy, up $1.12 to $1.99. Another card with a big percentage jump this week. I think when people first saw this, they didn't quite know what to make of it. But it is a good Standard card in like a mono red deck. I do think, especially week 1, week 2, you're going to see a lot of mono red decks as people kind of have cards from the past metas that haven't rotated out that are really good still. And you combine that with some of the new ones. I do think that's a deck that could actually perform very well. Now, many of them will run this out of the sideboard, but the appeal here is in a deck that can dump their hand quickly, you're able to play this for 4 mana, and even though it doesn't do anything on its own, it kind of cantrips, because from that point forward, you can play your top card, so it's almost like you drew that top card. It's weird that it closes off your hand, so you can't hang on to a lot of stuff for later, but aggro red decks don't want to do that. They want to dump their hands and refuel. This is going to help you do that. So let's say I get rid of most of my cards, I play this, now I have access to my top card. Let's say it's a land and I haven't played a land yet. Wonderful. Boom. There's my land. And now I have access to another card. So in some ways, it's even better than a cantrip under certain circumstances. And then if I'm really lucky, I could have a huge turn where I play like a lightning strike and then I play a creature and then a shock. So this card can get crazy just by allowing you to play off the top of your deck. Number 6, Risk Factor. For the same reasons the last card's popular, 202 to 499. I've seen mono red decks running this and Boros decks running this. Again, aggressive decks are going to love this type of thing. If you can keep the pressure on, there's no good choice here for your opponents. Usually, I'm not a fan of cards that give the opponents the choice, and this won't be great if you're behind for some reason. But if you're pouring on early damage, playing this and then jump-starting it at some point is backbreaking. Any combination of taking 4 to 8 damage or having the opponent draw 3 to 6 cards is not going to be good for you in those situations. This is very reminiscent of Browbeat, a strong card in Standard in its day. Number 5, Runaway Steamkin, up 251 to 575. There's a trend here with these mono-red cards. Here's another one. Obviously, mono-red aggressive decks want this. And whenever you cast a red spell, it doesn't have to be instant or sorcery notice. That could be a creature. This gets a little bit bigger later if you need the mana for some reason. It gives you an option. But I think for the most part, you just want to clear the path with burn, play some aggressive creatures, let this thing grow, and keep attacking in. Number 4, Dream Eater, up 377 to 750. A card that's showing up in some of the Dimir or Esper control builds right now that are being brewed. And this is just giving you so much value. Yes, it's 6, but look what you're getting here. It has flash, so a control deck will love that. They can hang on to it and play it at the right time. It has flying, so there's your evasion. 4/3, maybe a tad fragile, but you also survive 4 when it enters the battlefield. And on top of all that, you bounce a non-land permanent and opponent controls. You're getting a ton here for 6 mana. Huge, huge value. Of course, this will see standard play. Number 3, Aurelia, Exemplar of Justice, up 380 to 1491. I've been talking a lot about the mono-red aggro deck, but yes, there is a Boros aggro deck, and I've even seen token variants of that deck that people are working on, and this is always a key part of them. It's a solid card on its own, and being mythic, it will definitely hold a strong price, but yes, this card will also see standard play in the early portion of the meta at the very least. Number 2 is Pelt Collector, up 762 to $11. This card was very underrated when it was originally premiered. I just feel like a lot of people weren't paying attention to it, but it is quite strong. I have seen some of the green stoppy decks now turning into Selesnya stoppy decks, and they do want this card. It's a very aggressive start. If you play this on turn 1 and then play a 2/2 for 2 on turn 2 even, then now you have a 2/2 attacking in on turn 2. Pretty fast start for that deck that could maybe even be playing a Steel Leaf Champion on turn 3. Could get out of hand, right? So this card is going to be very strong in those style of builds. Number 1, March of the Multitudes, up 883 to 1450. Wow, okay, so it is a mythic. That's part of the reason it's climbing. But a lot of people are thinking about Selesnya tokens decks. We haven't been talking a lot about that deck on our top 10. It feels like Mono Red or Boros have taken up a lot of that space. But there are people very serious about that token deck. Also, Commander players, Selesnya tokens, here's another card for you that's going to be real solid, so there is crossover appeal. Having said that, that is the Market Watch for today. Now tomorrow, if I can get my hands on a Guilds of Ravnica bundle pack, I'm going to open one of those on the channel. But regardless, on Saturday, we'll be back with our regular episode of the Market Watch where we talk about everything else that's going on in the market. But until next time, hey, thanks for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe and have a great day. Hey, thanks for watching. This video is made possible by the generous support of viewers like you on Patreon. Check out the description below for links to our Patreon page as well as our Amazon affiliate store, where a small percentage of all sales will also help support the channel. Finally, if you haven't had a chance yet to subscribe, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any new videos on Heroes and Legends. Talk to you again soon, and have a great day.